Apologize to your brother for these lies, or you are no longer our daughter, and my father said, his voice like ice across the Christmas table. My genius brother had stolen my algorithm, sold it for millions, and my parents chose to crush me just to protect his image. I simply smiled and said, all right. They thought they had won. But at exactly 8 a.m., as my mother set the table, every phone in the house began to scream with notifications of lawsuits and expulsion. I didn't just defend myself, I burned his world to the ground. I stand in the kitchen on Christmas morning, watching the color drain from my father's face as he stares at his phone. My mother is gripping Julian's arm, her knuckles white, as he whispers frantically about legal exposure and damage control. On the polished mahogany table, a formal cease and desist letter sits next to a plate of half-eaten pastries. Only 24 hours ago, my parents had threatened to cut me off entirely, my tuition, my rent, every cent, unless I apologized to their golden boy for accusing him of stealing my life's work. I had simply looked them in the eye, smiled, and said one thing. All right. Now, as the gears of corporate law and academic integrity begin to grind, my family is realizing they severely underestimated their quiet, overlooked daughter. My name is Meyer, and until a few months ago, I actually believed my brother was a genius. At 24, Julian was the rising star of Colorado's tech scene, fast-tracked into an elite doctoral program at a prestigious private institute with a massive sponsorship from a top-tier firm. Meanwhile, I was just a senior at the state university, pouring every waking hour into my thesis, a revolutionary learning algorithm capable of predicting market shifts with nearly perfect accuracy. My parents never let me forget the gap between us. Julian was the future, the living proof of their superior parenting. I was the afterthought, the quiet girl who was good with computers but lacked his magnetic charisma and drive. The hierarchy had been set in stone since we were children. Julian got the private tutors, the new car, and the unwavering belief that he could do no wrong. I got the hammer-downs and the constant, soul-draining comparisons. When Julian won a coding competition in high school, my father threw a catered party. When I won the same competition 2 years later, he told me it was good practice for the real world. Everything shattered 3 months ago. I was running a final diagnostic on my algorithm, I'd named it Aegis, when I saw a preview for an article in a major tech journal. It described a breakthrough AI from a brilliant doctoral student, an architecture that sounded hauntingly familiar. I paid the access fee, and there it was. My code. My unique framework. My exact mathematical logic, published under my brother's name, Julian Vance. He hadn't just borrowed an idea, he had gutted my entire digital soul, line by line. Last night, at our Christmas Eve dinner, I calmly laid out the evidence. Timestamps, digital watermarks, and server logs showing his unauthorized access to my university account. My father didn't even glance at the proof. He used my full name, Meyer Vance, in that low, terrifying tone he reserved for his deepest disappointments. He gave me the ultimatum. Apologize for these disgusting, jealous lies, or you are no longer our daughter. I looked at Julian's perfect, innocent face, a mask of practiced betrayal, and felt a strange, cold sense of peace. All right, I said. Then I went upstairs to dismantle his world. Back in my room, the finality of my decision settled over me. This wasn't a sudden impulse. It was the closing move in a game I had been forced to play for months. I knew a direct confrontation would be useless. Our family court had only one judge and executioner, my brother's image. So, my first call hadn't been to my parents. It was to my Aunt Sarah, my mother's estranged sister. Sarah was a shark, a top-tier intellectual property lawyer in Denver who had watched my parents' favoritism with disgust for years. I sent her everything. The code, the logs, the comparisons. Her response came back in less than an hour. He didn't just plagiarize a paper, Meyer. He committed corporate espionage. His sponsor funded his research based on your stolen work. The damages are in the millions. For 2 months, we worked in total secrecy. Sarah's firm built an ironclad case, documenting every stolen line and preparing legal notices for every institution Julian was tied to. She taught me the difference between a family squabble and a felony. They will try to make this about emotion, she told me during one of our late-night calls. They'll call you jealous or difficult. Don't let them. This is business. It's about theft, and it's about consequences. We had it all ready. A digital arsenal waiting for the order. I was just waiting for the inevitable moment when my family would force me to choose between their fantasy and my reality. Last night, they handed me that choice on a silver platter. The bedroom door creaked open. It was Julian. The charming, wounded mask he'd worn at dinner was gone, replaced by a cold, arrogant sneer. That was quite a performance downstairs, he said, leaning against the door frame. Trying to ruin my life right before the holidays? Pathetic, even for you. I didn't answer. I kept my eyes fixed on my laptop screen. He pushed off the frame and walked toward me, his voice dropping into a low, jagged threat. You need to stop this. Now. Go back down there, cry, and tell them you were stressed out and made the whole thing up. Tell them you're sorry. I finally looked up at him. No. His face tightened, the veins in his neck beginning to pulse. Listen to me, you ungrateful brat. I am on the verge of everything, and you are nothing. If you try to take this any further, I will ruin you. I'll tell everyone you're mentally unstable. I'll leak your private journals. I'll make sure no school or company ever takes you seriously again. Who do you think they'll believe? A rising star or his jealous, mediocre little sister? The casual cruelty in his voice didn't hurt. It did something else entirely. It erased any last lingering doubt, any shred of familial sentimentality I had left. He wasn't my brother. He was just a thief, cornered and afraid. He saw my silence as weakness. That's what I thought, he sneered, turning to leave. Now go fix the mess you made. As the door clicked shut, I felt a surge of cold, clean energy. He thought he was threatening me. He had no idea he had just signed his own professional death warrant. Downstairs, I could hear the sounds of forced holiday cheer, carols on the radio, my mother's light, practiced laughter, the clinking of glasses. They were celebrating their victory, confident they had put the difficult daughter back in her place. My bedroom wasn't a place of defeat. It was a war room. My laptop screen glowed, displaying from meticulously prepared folders. This was the controlled demolition Aunt Sarah and I had designed. It was a 4-strike assault intended not just to expose Julian, but to dismantle his fraudulent career from every possible angle. Strike 1 was the legal attack. I opened the first folder, addressed to the general counsel of his corporate sponsor, a tech giant based in California called Apex Solutions. It contained a formal cease and desist, a 50-page evidence dossier, and a notice of intent to sue for damages related to corporate espionage. The letter made it clear that Apex had unknowingly funded a project built entirely on stolen intellectual property. Strike 2 was the academic takedown. The second folder was for the Institute's Office of Academic Integrity. It included a detailed report outlining how Julian had violated their honor code, with irrefutable proof that his entire doctoral thesis was fraudulent. We included sworn affidavits from 2 of my own professors at the State University, confirming the originality and the timeline of my work on Aegis. This wasn't just about getting him expelled, it was about ensuring his record was permanently flagged for fraud. Strike 3 targeted his reputation. The third folder contained tailored evidence packages for 3 of the most influential journals in the industry. It proved that the breakthrough algorithm they had praised was stolen. We weren't just asking for a retraction, we were giving them the story of how they had been duped. Nothing kills a reputation faster than public humiliation in your own field. The final strike was the trigger. A simple encrypted email to Aunt Sarah containing all the evidence and my final go-ahead. Her firm would act as the official source, giving every notification the weight of a multi-million-dollar law practice. I attached the files one by one to separate scheduled emails. I set the timer for exactly 8 a.m. on Christmas morning. I wanted them to have one last perfect moment, one final hour of their carefully constructed illusion before reality came crashing down. As I hit the schedule button, I felt no anger, no sadness, just a profound sense of clarity. This wasn't revenge. It was a market correction. Julian had built a career on assets he didn't own, and I was simply calling in the debt. Downstairs, the laughter continued, oblivious. They thought they had cut me off, but they had no idea I had already severed the ties that mattered and was about to light the fuse. At exactly 8 a.m. on Christmas morning, as my mother was setting out the pastries, a single notification pinged on my phone, scheduled email sent. A moment later, Julian's phone, sitting on the counter, began to buzz. It didn't stop. A cascade of notifications lit up his screen. He glanced at it, his expression shifting from casual annoyance to confusion, then to outright panic. He snatched the phone up, his thumb swiping frantically. "What the hell?" he muttered. I watched his face as he read the sender lines: Aunt Sarah's law firm, the Institute's Office of Academic Integrity, the Apex Solutions Legal Department. The color drained from his face. His hands started to shake so violently that the phone slipped, clattering onto the granite countertop. "Oh God," he whispered, his eyes wide with horror. "Oh God, oh God." My parents rushed over, drawn by his distress. "Julian, honey, what is it?" my mother asked, her voice laced with concern. My father, David, looked from Julian's pale face to me, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. "She did it," Julian breathed, pointing a trembling finger at me. "She actually did it. She sent everything." My mother looked confused. "Sent what, sweetie? What is she talking about?" My father picked up Julian's phone, his business-savvy eyes scanning the screen. He scrolled through the email subjects, his expression hardening. Cease and desist notification. Formal inquiry. Academic fraud. Urgent intellectual property dispute. My mother still didn't understand. "It's just more drama. David, Meyer is just trying to ruin the holiday." But my father wasn't listening. His eyes were locked on 2 specific words in the subject line from the Apex legal team. He read them aloud, his voice barely a whisper. Corporate espionage. That was the trigger. That was the phrase that transformed this from a family argument into a business catastrophe in his mind. He was a senior executive. He understood exactly what those words meant. This wasn't about hurt feelings anymore. This was about lawsuits, financial ruin, and potential criminal charges. His carefully curated world of suburban success was suddenly on the verge of collapse. Julian looked at me, his arrogance completely gone, replaced by raw, primal fear. He had gone a sickly, ghost-like white. "Please tell me you didn't send it," he pleaded, his voice cracking. "Meyer, please, you can still stop this. Tell me you didn't send it all." Before I could even answer, my father looked up from the phone, his face a mask of cold dread. He stared at me, finally understanding the magnitude of what I had done, and asked the question that hung in the air like a death sentence. "Send what?" The first call came at 8:15 from the dean of the institute's graduate school. My father put it on speaker, his hand trembling slightly. A crisp, no-nonsense voice filled the kitchen. "Mr. Vance, I'm calling to inform you that your son Julian has been immediately suspended, pending a full investigation into allegations of severe academic fraud. We have received an extensive dossier of evidence that suggests his entire doctoral project is built on stolen intellectual property." My mother gasped. "Suspended? But it's a mistake. It's his sister. She's having problems." The dean's voice was icy. This is no longer a family matter. We have login records, time-stamped code, and sworn affidavits. If these allegations are proven, and the evidence seems overwhelming, he will be expelled, and his academic record will be permanently tarnished. The call ended, leaving a stunned silence. My father looked like he'd been punched. Before anyone could speak, his own cell phone rang. It was Apex Solutions. "David?" A man's voice barked so loud I could hear it from across the room. It was Marcus Thorne, the vice president who had personally sponsored Julian. "What the hell is going on?" "My legal team just woke me up on Christmas morning with a file that says our $500,000 investment in your son is based on corporate espionage. Is this true?" My father stammered. "Marcus, it's a misunderstanding, a family issue." Marcus cut him off. "I have a side-by-side comparison of your son's code and the original work. It's identical. We're not just pulling his funding, David. We're exploring legal action to claw back every cent we've spent. And we're filing a report with the district attorney. This is grand theft." The line went dead. My mother began to sob, clutching her chest as if she could physically hold her collapsing world together. But the worst was yet to come. It was Julian who finally shattered. The weight of the immediate, irreversible consequences crushed him, and his charming facade didn't just crack, it disintegrated. His face contorted into a mask of pure rage, and he turned not toward me, but toward our parents. "This is your fault," he screamed, his voice raw and ugly. "You did this." My father stared at him, bewildered. "What are you talking about? We did nothing but support you." Julian laughed, a bitter, broken sound that echoed through the kitchen. "You demanded this. I had to be the best. I had to be the star of the institute. I had to be better than everyone else. I couldn't fail, not even once, or I'd lose everything. The pressure, you have no idea what that pressure felt like." He pointed a shaking finger at them, his eyes wild. "I did this for you. To keep being your perfect golden boy. And now it's all gone." In that horrifying moment, my parents finally saw him. The mirror had cracked. The flawless reflection they had worshipped for 24 years was gone, and in its place stood a screaming, cornered fraud, a man blaming everyone but himself for his own choices. They weren't looking at their brilliant son anymore, they were looking at the monster their own expectations had helped create. 6 months later, I am sitting in a glass-walled conference room in Austin, watching 3 venture capitalists try to outbid each other for the seed funding of my company, Aegis Systems. After Julian's downfall, the story of the stolen algorithm went viral in the tech community. Instead of being tainted by the scandal, I was recognized as a visionary with unshakable integrity. A top-tier research university offered me a full fellowship for my master's within a week. Now, my original algorithm, free and clear under my own name, is poised to redefine predictive analytics, and I am the CEO of my own future. Julian's career, by contrast, was obliterated. He was expelled and is currently facing a multi-million-dollar civil suit from Apex Solutions. Buried in legal fees, he had to sell his car and move into a cramped studio apartment. While the criminal charges were eventually reduced in exchange for a plea deal involving a public apology and restitution, he remains a pariah. In an industry built on innovation, his name has become a cautionary tale. The fallout fractured my family, but in a strange way, it also forced us into a place of honesty for the first time. My parents are in therapy now, both individually and together. The shock of seeing Julian's true nature, and their role in cultivating it, was a brutal but necessary awakening. My father called me a month ago, his voice heavy with the shame I had never heard from him. He apologized, not just for siding with Julian, but for the years of comparisons and for never truly seeing my own accomplishments. My mother sent a long, handwritten letter expressing the same. Our relationship is still fragile, a delicate thing being rebuilt one honest conversation at a time, but it is real now, stripped of the toxic favoritism that defined us for so long. I have found a profound peace in the new foundation of my life. It isn't built on family expectations or anyone else's approval, but on my own merit and my own hard work. The path I chose was difficult, and it cost me the family I thought I had, but in its place, I am building something stronger and more authentic. True strength isn't about protecting a comfortable lie, it's about having the courage to face a difficult truth. Choosing between protecting someone you care about and standing up for what is right is a terrifying decision, but integrity is a muscle, and every time we choose the truth, we grow stronger.